The scorching twin suns of Earth beat down mercilessly on Nyx's Brightscale's protective environmental suit. She wiped the condensation from her third eye, cursing under her breath as her scaled fingers left smudges on the crystalline surface. By the ancients, this planet is trying to cook us alive. Lead archaeologist Brightscale, her communication device, crackled. The thermal readings are spiking again. Something's interfering with our equipment. Nyx straightened her 7-foot frame and surveyed the excavation site. The ruins of the human civilization stretched endlessly across the horizon, their towering structures now nothing more than twisted metal and crumbling concrete. 300 years of abandonment had transformed Earth into a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when a species pushes too far, too fast. "Send me the coordinates," junior researcher Terence replied, trying to keep the excitement from her voice. After 6 months of digging through human ruins, they might finally have found something worth reporting to the Galactic Heritage Foundation. The coordinates led her to a seemingly unremarkable section of the dig site. But Nyx hadn't become the youngest lead archaeologist in the Foundation's history by ignoring her instincts. "Bring the quantum scanner over here," she called out to her team. "And someone tell Professor Lana to stop cataloging those primitive ground vehicles. We might have something actually interesting." As her team assembled around her, their protective suits gleaming under the harsh sunlight, Nyx activated her handheld scanner. The readings made her antenna twitch with anticipation. "There's a structure beneath us, approximately 50 meters down, reinforced with... Wait, that can't be right." Professor Lana, a tall, willowy being with bioluminescent markings, peered over her shoulder. "What seems to be the problem?" These energy signatures, Nyx pointed to the fluctuating patterns on her screen. "They're active. Not residual, not degrading. Active." A murmur ran through the assembled team. 3 centuries after the human exodus, finding anything still functioning on Earth was about as likely as finding a vegetarian Kraxon. "Perhaps it's a malfunction," suggested junior researcher Terran, his 4 arms gesturing nervously. "The heat could be affecting the equipment." Nyx shook her head, her scales shifting color with determination. "No, these readings are too consistent for a malfunction. Whatever's down there, it's been running for 300 years, and it's waiting for something, or someone." The next few hours were a blur of activity as excavation drones carefully cleared away layers of debris and soil. Nyx supervised every moment, her heart racing whenever the scanners picked up new details about the structure below. When they finally breached the outer shell of what appeared to be a bunker entrance, the entire team fell silent. The door was pristine, as if it had been sealed yesterday rather than centuries ago. The human writing was still clearly visible, though the language translation took their systems a few moments to process. "Project Eternal Dawn," Nyx read aloud. "Warning, authorized personnel only. Temporal displacement possible." Professor Lana let out a nervous laugh. "Temporal displacement? Surely you don't believe humans had mastered time manipulation?" 10 years ago, we didn't believe they had mastered quantum entanglement either, Nyx reminded her. "Then we found their abandoned lunar bases. Humans were. Surprising." As if responding to their presence, the door's ancient security system hummed to life. Lights they hadn't noticed began pulsing in a steady rhythm, and a mechanical voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. "Please state authorization code or present valid genetic signature." The team jumped back, except for Nyx, who stepped closer, fascinated. "How is it speaking our language?" "Adaptive linguistics protocol," engaged the voice responded. "This facility has been learning and updating its database since the Exodus. Please state authorization code or present valid genetic signature." Nyx felt a shiver run down her spine despite the heat. "This isn't just some bunker," she announced to her stunned team. "This is something else entirely, something they left behind on purpose." She activated her comm link to the orbital research vessel. "Central Command, this is lead archaeologist Brightscale. We're going to need a full containment and research team down here, priority level 1, and send someone from the ethics committee. I have a feeling we're about to cross some interesting lines." As her team began setting up a permanent research station around the bunker entrance, Nyx couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. not by anything hostile, but by something patient, something that had been waiting for exactly this moment. She placed her hand against the cool metal of the door, wondering what secrets lay behind it. "What were you working on in here?" she whispered. "And why did you want us to find it?" The door's lights pulsed once more, almost like a heartbeat, and Nixis knew their real work was just beginning. After 3 days of careful scanning and security bypass attempts, the bunker door finally yielded to their efforts. Nixis stood at the threshold, her scanner probing the darkness beyond. The air that rushed out was sterile, processed, and impossibly fresh. "Temperature is holding at precisely 20 degrees Celsius," announced junior researcher Terran, monitoring the environmental readings. "Atmosphere composition matches historical human requirements. The preservation systems are still functioning perfectly." Professor Lana adjusted her protective suit's settings. "Rather excessive for an empty bunker, don't you think?" "Who says it's empty?" Nixis replied, activating her suit's illumination panels. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a corridor that stretched deep into the earth. The walls were lined with pulsing circuits that seemed to follow their movement. Security Chief Ralex stepped forward, his massive frame blocking most of the doorway. "Protocol demands I take point. Lead archaeologist. We don't know what automated defense systems might still be active." Nixis nodded, though her scales rippled with barely contained impatience. As they descended into the facility, their footsteps echoed against metal floors that showed no sign of age or wear. The air grew cooler, and the humming of ancient machinery grew louder. "These power readings are impossible," Terran muttered, his 4 arms working multiple scanners simultaneously. "The energy signature suggests a quantum fusion reactor, but it's using patterns I've never seen before." They reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 branches. Each path was marked with human symbols that their translation software rendered in real-time research operations and preservation. "Preservation," Nixis said immediately. "That's our priority." The preservation wing led them to a massive circular chamber. As they entered, lights automatically activated, revealing rows of cylindrical containers arranged in concentric circles. Most were dark, their contents long since removed or failed. But in the center, a single pod pulsed with a soft blue light. "By the 7 moons," Professor Lana whispered. "Is that what I think it is?" Nixis approached the active pod, her heart pounding. The surface was frosted over, but as she drew near, the ice began to clear, revealing the figure within. A human female perfectly preserved, suspended in cryogenic stasis. "She's alive," Nixis announced, checking the pod's readouts. "Brain activity, cellular integrity, all within normal parameters. According to this data, she's been here since the Exodus." Security Chief Ralex raised his pulse rifle. "This changes everything. We need to contact the Council immediately." "Put that weapon down," Nixis snapped, her scales flushing dark with anger. "She's not a threat. She's a scientific discovery of unprecedented importance." "She's a human," Ralex countered. "The same species that nearly destroyed their own planet and threatened galactic stability. The Council has protocols for this situation." Before Nixis could respond, the pod's external speaker crackled to life. A voice, speaking perfect galactic standard, emerged. "Voice authorization recognized. Beginning revival sequence for Project Director Nash, Amanda. Estimated time to consciousness 30 minutes. The chamber burst into activity. Medical drones, dormant for centuries, whirred to life and began preparing revival protocols. The pod's lights shifted from blue to a warm amber as the cryogenic fluid began to drain. "Stop the sequence," Ralex demanded. "We don't have clearance for this." "The sequence can't be stopped without risking brain damage," Terran reported, studying the medical readouts. And I don't think we should stop it. Look at this." He projected a hologram showing the human's neural patterns. Complex equations and diagrams flowed through her brain activity, unlike anything they'd seen before. "She's not just surviving in there," Nixis realized. "She's been processing data this entire time. Her mind has been active, learning, evolving. She knows we're here. She's been waiting for us." Professor Lana began setting up monitoring equipment. The anthropological implications alone are staggering. A human who experienced both their civilization's peak and their exodus. The historical value. The security risk, Ralix interrupted, is unacceptable. Nixis faced him directly. Right now, I am the ranking Foundation official on this expedition. This is a scientific mission, not a military operation. That human is now under my protection and jurisdiction. If you have a problem with that, you can take it up with the Council after we've ensured her safe revival. The security chief's expression hardened, but he lowered his weapon. I'll be noting my objection in the official record. Note whatever you want, Nixis replied, turning back to the pod. Through the clearing cryo-fluid, she could see the human's features more clearly now. Dark hair framed a face that looked surprisingly peaceful, almost as if she were simply sleeping. The next 25 minutes were a flurry of preparation. Medical equipment was calibrated, translation systems were updated, and heated debates broke out about proper first contact protocols for a species that technically wasn't first contact anymore. As the pod entered its final revival phase, Nixis dismissed everyone except Professor Lana and 2 medical drones. We don't want to overwhelm her, she explained. This has to be handled delicately. The pod's cover slid open with a soft hiss. The human's eyes fluttered, then opened. They were a striking green, alert and focused despite centuries of suspended animation. She sat up slowly, gracefully, as if she'd simply woken from a nap rather than a 300-year slumber. Hello, Nixis Brightscale, Amanda Nash said, her voice clear and steady. I've been monitoring your progress since you found the bunker. I must say your dedication to archaeological preservation is impressive, though your security chief's paranoia is unfortunately predictable. Nixis's antenna twitched in surprise. You know who I am. Amanda smiled, and there was something both wonderful and terrifying in that expression. Of course, I know all of you. I've had 3 centuries to prepare for this moment. She looked around the chamber, taking in the changes time had brought to her facility. Now, shall we discuss why humanity really left Earth, and what we left behind to protect the galaxy from what's coming? Nixis felt her scales prickle with anticipation. She had come looking for artifacts, and instead found a living bridge between past and future. As she helped Amanda Nash stand on legs that hadn't been used in centuries, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything she thought she knew about human history was about to change. Amanda Nash's footsteps echoed through the corridor as she led the team toward the research wing. Her movements were precise, showing no signs of muscular atrophy from her centuries of suspension. Nixis watched her with a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing unease. Your adaptation to our language is remarkable, Professor Lana commented, struggling to keep pace with the human's brisk walk. Amanda smiled without turning around. 300 years of neural interface with the facility's systems gave me time to learn quite a bit. Though I must admit, your species' addition to the Galactic Council was fascinating to monitor. The first silicon-based life forms to achieve faster-than-light travel. Nixis's scales shifted color in surprise. The facility was monitoring outside events. The facility was monitoring everything, Amanda replied, stopping at a massive set of doors. Which brings us to why you're all here. She pressed her palm against a scanner, and the doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss. The chamber beyond was enormous, stretching at least 100 meters in every direction. In its center stood a machine that defied conventional geometry. Rings of what appeared to be dark matter rotated around a core of pure light, all contained within a series of interconnected crystalline chambers. Welcome to Project Eternal Dawn, Amanda announced, or, as we came to call it, the bridge. Security Chief Ralix immediately raised his weapon. That's a quantum manipulation device. Class 7 restricted technology under galactic law. Put that down before you hurt yourself, Amanda said, her tone carrying a sharp edge. This technology predates your laws by centuries, and it's something far more significant than simple quantum manipulation. Nixis stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her caution. What exactly are we looking at, Director Nash? Amanda's expression grew distant, her eyes reflecting the machine's pulsing light. Let me tell you about the last days of Earth. Not the sanitized version in your historical archives, but the truth. She walked to a control panel, her fingers dancing across its surface. The air around them shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by holographic images of Earth as it had been. 300 years ago, humanity made a discovery that changed everything. We found something in the space between thoughts, in the quantum foam that underlies consciousness itself. We discovered that consciousness wasn't just an emergent property of complex systems. It was a fundamental force of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism. The holographic display showed scenes of scientists working on earlier versions of the bridge, their excitement palpable even across the centuries. But we also discovered something else, Amanda continued, her voice growing harder. We weren't the first to make this discovery, and we weren't the first to realize what it meant. The images shifted, showing strange patterns in space, distortions that hurt to look at. There are things out there, ancient things, that feed on consciousness. They consume it, strip it from entire species, leaving nothing but empty shells behind. We found evidence of civilizations that had vanished without a trace, worlds quarantined not because of natural disasters, but because every conscious being on them had simply stopped. Professor Lana's bioluminescent markings pulsed with agitation. That's impossible. The quarantined worlds were victims of plague or environmental collapse. Those were cover stories, Amanda said, crafted by beings so ancient they make your Galactic Council look like children playing at government. We called them the Harvesters, and they're coming. The holographic display showed Earth's final days. Millions of ships leaving the planet, the carefully crafted story of environmental collapse and social breakdown. Our exodus wasn't a retreat, Amanda explained. It was a strategic withdrawal. We scattered humanity across the stars, hiding our true numbers, while a select few of us stayed behind to complete the bridge. Nixis studied the machine with new understanding. What does it do? It transfers consciousness, Amanda replied. Not just memories or personality patterns, but the fundamental quantum signature that makes each mind unique. But more than that, it can replicate consciousness, amplify it, strengthen it against external manipulation. You're talking about weaponizing consciousness itself, Security Chief Ralex growled. No, Amanda corrected. We're talking about vaccination. The bridge can modify the quantum signature of consciousness across an entire species, making them immune to the harvester's feeding. But it has to be done carefully, precisely, or the target minds burn out completely. Nixis felt her head spinning with implications. Why reveal this now? Because we detected them 6 months ago, Amanda said quietly. A harvester scout ship testing the boundaries of known space. You have maybe 5 years before they arrive in force. We left the bridge here, on Earth, because we knew eventually someone would find it. Someone who could help us protect not just humanity, but all conscious species in the galaxy. Junior researcher Taryn, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. The energy signatures we detected. You've been powering this machine for 300 years. Amanda nodded. Powered by my consciousness, linked through the cryogenic system. Running simulations, perfecting the process, waiting for the right moment. The moment when the galaxy's species were sufficiently connected that we could implement the solution quickly enough to matter. And now that we've found you, Nixis asked. Now we have a choice to make, Amanda replied. The bridge requires a human consciousness to operate. I can show you how to use it, help you protect your species and others. But there's a catch. She turned to face them fully, her green eyes intense. The process will burn out my consciousness completely. One shot, one chance to get it right. And if we fail, if even one variable is wrong, we risk destroying the consciousness of every being we try to protect. Security Chief Ralex tightened his grip on his weapon. This is exactly why humanity was considered too dangerous. One human proposing to alter the fundamental nature of every conscious being in the galaxy. Not alter, Amanda corrected. Protect. The same way a vaccine protects against a virus. The choice is simple: risk everything on an untested defense, or wait for the harvesters to arrive and hope I'm wrong. Professor Lana had moved closer to the bridge, studying its intricate construction. The quantum equations required for something like this. They're beyond anything in our current theoretical framework. Of course they are, Amanda said with a hint of pride. We had to invent entirely new branches of mathematics just to describe what we were seeing. The real question is, are you willing to learn? Nixis looked between Amanda and the bridge, her scientific training warring with her instincts. The human story was fantastic, impossible. And yet the evidence was right in front of them. A machine that had run for centuries, powered by a single consciousness. Technology that surpassed their current understanding. And those energy signatures they detected in deep space, the ones that had defied conventional analysis. How long, Nixes asked finally. To teach you everything you need to know. A month, maybe 2. To implement the solution across the galaxy? Hours once we start. The quantum nature of consciousness means distance isn't a factor. But every moment we wait increases the risk of detection. Nixes finished. She turned to her team, seeing the conflict on their faces. We need to contact the council. No, Amanda said sharply. The moment this becomes official, it becomes political. Committees, debates, power struggles. We don't have time for that. The harvesters survived this long by striking before their targets could prepare. We need to work fast, work smart, and most importantly, work in secret. The tension in the room grew thick enough to cut. Security Chief Ralex looked ready to arrest them all, while Professor Lana couldn't tear her eyes away from the bridge's mathematical displays. Junior researcher Terran was frantically recording everything, his forearms barely keeping up with the flow of data. Nixes felt the weight of centuries pressing down on her. A human secret, preserved through time, now threatened to shatter everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. And somehow she had become the one who had to decide what to do about it. Show me, she said finally. Show me everything. Amanda's smile was both grateful and sad. That's why we chose this place for first contact, Nix's Bright Scale. Because sometimes the most important discoveries aren't artifacts or machines. Sometimes they're moments of trust between species who have every reason to fear each other, but choose to hope instead. The bridge's rings began to spin faster, their dark matter cores pulsing with possibilities, as humanity's last guardian prepared to share secrets that would change the galaxy forever. The emergency meeting alarm blared through the facility, its harsh tone breaking the tense silence that had fallen over the research team. Nixes burst into the command center, her scales dark with concern. The holographic displays showed multiple ships entering Earth's orbit. They're not Foundation vessels, Professor Lana announced, her bioluminescent markings flickering rapidly. 7 ships. 3 different corporation signatures. Amanda Nash stood perfectly still, watching the displays with an expression that made Nixes' scales crawl. Right on schedule, the human said quietly. What do you mean? On schedule, Nixes demanded. The moment we activated the bridge's primary systems, it sent out a quantum signature. One that certain parties have been waiting centuries to detect. Amanda turned to face Security Chief Ralex. Isn't that right, Chief? Ralex didn't move, but his hand drifted toward his weapon. Someone had to monitor the situation. The corporations have as much right to this discovery as the Foundation. You sold us out, Nixes snarled, her translator barely keeping up with her anger. While we were discussing the fate of conscious life in the galaxy, you were sending reports to corporate overlords. Not just him, Amanda said, her voice carrying a weight of centuries. Isn't that right, Professor Lana? The professor's markings pulsed with guilt. The Galactic Council deserved to know. This technology, these claims about harvesters, it's too big for one research team to handle. Junior researcher Terran backed away from his colleagues, his forearms raised in a gesture of surrender. I knew nothing about this. I swear by the 7 moons. He's telling the truth, Amanda confirmed. Terran and Nixes are the only ones who haven't betrayed their oaths. Well, them and the medical drones. Machines tend to be more reliable than people, regardless of species. The command center's displays showed the corporate ships beginning their descent. Warning messages flashed as their weapons systems powered up. They're not here to negotiate, Nixes realized. Of course not, Amanda replied. They're here to take the bridge, take me, and take control of the single most powerful technology ever created. Imagine it. The power to manipulate consciousness itself, to rewrite the very nature of thought. The corporations would kill billions for that kind of power. Ralex drew his weapon, but Amanda didn't even flinch. The corporations will protect humanity's legacy better than some underfunded research foundation. Protected, Amanda laughed, and the sound held no humor. They'll weaponize it, turn it into a tool of control instead of salvation. And while they fight over the scraps of human knowledge, the harvesters will come, and none of you will be ready. The facility shook as the first corporate ships landed nearby. Warning sirens blared as external security systems detected armed forces approaching. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they breach the facility," Nixis announced, checking the security feeds. "What do we do?" Amanda's expression softened as she looked at Nixis. "That depends entirely on you, lead archaeologist Brightscale. I prepared for this possibility, but the choice has to be yours. After all, your species will be affected just as much as any other." "Don't listen to her," Professor Lana pleaded. "The Council can study this properly, implement it safely." The Council, Amanda's voice cracked like a whip. The same Council that took one look at humanity's potential and decided we were too dangerous to exist. The same Council that would rather bury the truth about the harvesters than face the reality of what's coming. She walked to the main console, her fingers hovering over the controls. "I can activate the final sequence now. Begin the process of protecting every conscious species in range. But it will burn out my consciousness completely, and if anyone interferes with the process, it could damage the quantum signature of every being connected to the network." The facility shook again as corporate forces began cutting through the outer doors. Security feeds showed teams of heavily armed soldiers representing 3 of the largest megacorporations in the galaxy. "Time's up," Ralix announced, his weapon trained on Amanda. "Step away from the console." Nixis looked between her former colleagues, the approaching corporate forces, and the human who had waited 3 centuries for this moment. The weight of the decision pressed down on her like a physical force. "Why me?" she asked Amanda. "Why does it have to be my choice?" "Because you're the only one who came here looking for truth instead of power," Amanda replied simply. "The only one who saw humanity's remnants as something to understand rather than control. The corporations want to own the bridge. The Council wants to bury it. But you just want to know why. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you worthy of the choice." The inner doors began to spark as cutting tools chewed through their locks. They had maybe 2 minutes left. "If we do this," Nixis said carefully, "if we activate the bridge, what happens to you?" Amanda's smile was gentle, almost maternal. "I've been dead for 3 centuries, Nixis." This she gestured to herself. "This is just an echo, preserved by the bridge's systems. A consciousness kept alive by purpose rather than biology. It's time for me to finish what we started, but only if you believe it's the right thing to do." Ralix took aim at Amanda's head. "Last warning. Step away from." The security chief never finished his sentence. The medical drones, silent until now, suddenly activated their defensive protocols. Stun beams dropped both Ralix and Professor Lana before they could react. "A little insurance policy I programmed centuries ago," Amanda explained as Terran stared at his unconscious colleagues. "Now, Nixis Brightscale, lead archaeologist of the Galactic Heritage Foundation, descendant of Silicon dreamers who touched the stars. What's it going to be? Protection or control? Hope or power? The choice was always going to come down to a single moment. A single person willing to trust across the boundaries of species and time." The outer doors exploded inward. Corporate troops would reach them in less than a minute. Nixis looked at the bridge, its dark matter rings spinning with untold power. She looked at Amanda, this impossible human who had preserved both herself and her species' greatest creation through centuries of waiting. She thought about the quarantined worlds, the missing civilizations, and the things that waited in the dark between stars. And she made her choice. Nixis slammed her scaled hand down on the console. "Do it." Amanda's fingers flew across the controls with practiced precision. The bridge's rings began spinning faster, their dark matter cores pulsing with increasing intensity. "Terran, seal the inner doors. Every second counts." The junior researcher rushed to comply, his 4 arms working multiple control panels simultaneously. Behind them, the sound of corporate troops grew louder. "Initial quantum field established," Amanda announced, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Beginning consciousness synchronization. Nixis, I need you at the secondary console. Your consciousness will serve as the anchor point for your species. As Nixis took her position, warning lights flashed across every display. Professor Lana stirred on the floor, her bioluminescent markings pulsing weakly. "You don't understand what you're doing," she mumbled. "No," Professor Amanda replied without looking away from her work. "You don't understand what you nearly prevented. Terran, monitor the quantum stability readings. If they drop below 60%, shout." The bridge's crystalline chambers began to glow with an inner light that seemed to bend reality around it. The dark matter rings spun so fast they appeared to be solid circles of void against the brilliance. Corporate troops reached the inner doors, their cutting tools sending showers of sparks into the chamber. 1 minute until breach, Terran reported, his voice shaking. "Won't need that long," Amanda said. Her hands danced across the controls with increasing urgency. "Nixis, when I give the signal, press your palm against the quantum scanner. It will hurt. Don't pull away, no matter what." The facility's power grid fluctuated as the bridge drew more energy. Emergency systems kicked in, transferring power from every available source. The lights dimmed, then blazed with renewed intensity. "Quantum field at 80%, Amanda announced. "Consciousness synchronization pathways established. Beginning final sequence." A bolt of pain shot through Nixis's head as the bridge connected with her mind. She saw flashes of memories that weren't hers. Earth as it had been, the first discovery of the harvesters, humanity's desperate race to create a defense. The decision to scatter across the stars while leaving behind their greatest achievement. "Neural connection stable," Terran reported, then gasped. "But these readings, the power requirements are beyond anything we projected." Amanda nodded grimly. "The bridge requires more than just energy. It requires will, purpose, the focused intent of a consciousness willing to sacrifice everything to protect others." She turned to Nixis. "Are you ready?" The inner doors began to glow red as the corporate cutting tools reached their final layer. Security Chief Ralix groaned, starting to regain consciousness. "What will happen?" Nixis asked, her scales shifting colors with mixed fear and determination. "The bridge will use my consciousness as the template, burning it out in the process. Your consciousness will serve as the bridge to your species, and through them, to all silicon-based life in the galaxy. From there, the quantum network will spread to every form of conscious life we can reach. A psychic vaccination against the harvester's feeding." The doors burst open. Corporate troops poured in, weapons raised. "Stop what you're redoing," a mechanically amplified voice commanded. "Step away from the controls." Amanda's hands never stopped moving. "Now, Nixis, press your palm to the scanner. Choose hope." Nixis slammed her hand down on the quantum scanner. Pain exploded through her consciousness as the bridge made the connection. She saw everything. Every mind in range, every quantum signature of consciousness burning bright against the dark. And far away, at the edges of known space, she saw them, the harvesters. Ancient, patient, hungry. Quantum field at maximum, Terran shouted over the chaos. Neural network expanding exponentially. Amanda's form began to glow with the same inner light as the bridge. "Goodbye, Nixis Brightscale. Thank you for trusting humanity's last messenger." The corporate troops opened fire, but their weapons stopped in midair, caught in the quantum field now emanating from the bridge. Professor Lana and Security Chief Ralix stared in horror, as reality itself seemed to bend around them. "Neural network reaching critical mass," Terran reported, his voice filled with awe. "Consciousness signatures being modified across. I can't even measure the range." Amanda's body became transparent, her consciousness merging with the bridge's systems. Her voice echoed through the chamber, through their minds, through the very fabric of space-time itself. "The template is set. The vaccination spreads. Humanity's final gift to the galaxy is given. Remember us not for what we were, but for what we chose to become." The bridge pulsed once, twice, and then released a wave of quantum energy that passed through everything and everyone. Nixis felt it wash through her consciousness like fire and ice combined. She saw the waves spreading outward, faster than light, faster than thought, carrying the altered template of consciousness to every living mind in range. Then Amanda Nash, humanity's last guardian, disappeared entirely. The bridge's rings slowed their spin, the dark matter cores dimming to a quiet pulse. The corporate troops collapsed, their weapons clattering to the floor as their minds processed the transformation. Nixis pulled her hand away from the scanner, her entire body shaking. "Taryn? Are you?" "I feel it," he whispered. "Everything's different. The consciousness signatures, they're all changed. Protected. But more than that, they're connected. Not merged, not controlled, but aware of each other in a way that was impossible before." Professor Lana stood unsteadily, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with new patterns never seen before in her species. "The Council will never believe this." "They don't have to believe it," Nixis replied, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "They'll feel it, just like we do. Just like every conscious being in range will feel it. The barriers between species, between ways of thought, they're not gone, but they're different now. Changed." Security Chief Ralix looked at his weapon, then set it down carefully. "The corporations will still want the bridge, want to understand how it works." "Let them try," Nixis said, looking at the now quiet machine. "Its work is done. The template is spread, the vaccination is complete. Even if they take it apart atom by atom, they'll never recreate what happened here, because they'll never have what made it work." "What's that?" Taryn asked. "A human consciousness willing to burn itself out protecting other species. A trust given freely across 3 centuries of waiting. A choice made not for power, but for hope." The corporate troops began to stir, their minds forever altered by what they'd experienced. Above them, the bridge's dark matter rings spun one final time, then went quiet. Humanity's last gift to the galaxy had been given. The age of isolation was over. The age of connection had begun. And somewhere in the quantum fabric that connected all consciousness, Amanda Nash's final smile echoed through eternity, 1 month after the bridge event. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so full. Representatives from every known species crowded the vast amphitheater, their minds humming with the new awareness they all shared. Nixis stood at the central podium, her scales shimmering with determination as she faced the assembled leaders of galactic civilization. "The quantum consciousness network is stable," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "The transformation is complete and irreversible. We are all connected now, yet still individuals. Changed, yet still ourselves." First speaker Thexis, their crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns, leaned forward. "And you claimed this was humanity's plan all along. Not their extinction, not their exile, but this gift." "A gift and a warning," Nixis corrected. "The harvesters are real. We can all feel them now, at the edges of our awareness. They're coming, but thanks to humanity's sacrifice, we're ready for them." The chamber erupted in overlapping conversations, but now those conversations happened on multiple levels. Ideas and emotions flowed between species that had once barely been able to communicate. The quantum network that Amanda Nash had died to create allowed understanding that transcended traditional barriers. Corporate representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The network had made traditional forms of manipulation and control obsolete. How could you lie to someone when they could sense your true intentions? How could you hoard knowledge when consciousness itself had become a shared resource? "The bridge facility remains under Foundation protection," Nixis continued. "But its purpose is already served. The machine was never meant to be a weapon or a tool of control. It was a key, unlocking potential that existed in all conscious beings. Humanity saw what was coming and spent centuries preparing not to fight the harvesters, but to change the very nature of consciousness itself." Security Chief Ralix, now serving as head of the facility's protection detail, stepped forward. "Our preliminary studies of the quantum network show it's already evolving beyond its original parameters. Species that could barely communicate before now share dreams. Children born after the event show unprecedented levels of empathic and telepathic ability." Professor Lana, her bioluminescent markings now capable of expressing emotions that could be felt by everyone in range, activated a holographic display. "The network appears to be self-strengthening. Each connection, each shared experience, makes it more robust. The harvester's feeding technique relied on isolated consciousness. But connected consciousness, that's something entirely new. First speaker Thexus's crystalline form vibrated with concern. And what of the human colonies? The ones that scattered across unknown space centuries ago? We can feel them now, Nixus replied simply. All of them. The network knows no distance. Humanity never died out. They just waited, scattered and hidden, until the moment was right. Until they found someone they could trust with their greatest discovery. The chamber's mood shifted as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't fled in defeat. They had orchestrated the most ambitious species-wide strategy in galactic history. While the Council had dismissed them as dangerous primitives, they had worked to save every conscious being in the galaxy. Junior researcher Terran, now leading the scientific study of the network, brought up new data on the display. We're detecting quantum consciousness signatures from regions we thought were empty. Hundreds of human colonies, hidden in plain sight. And they're starting to reach out. The first contact had happened 3 days ago. A human colony ship, emerging from a supposedly uninhabited system. Its crew already connected to the network, already part of the new galactic consciousness. They brought with them centuries of accumulated knowledge, art, and discovery. The old power structures are obsolete, Nixus announced to the chamber. Corporate monopolies, information control, species rivalry. None of it works in a connected galaxy. We need to build something new. Something worthy of the trust humanity placed in us. The council members stirred uneasily. Centuries of tradition and hierarchy were crumbling around them. But they could feel the truth of her words through the network. The old ways were ending, not through violence or revolution, but through understanding. The harvesters will arrive in 4 years, Nixus continued, but they won't find what they expect. Instead of isolated prey, they'll find a galaxy of connected consciousness. Instead of fear, they'll find strength. Instead of division, unity. She touched a control, and a new hologram appeared. The bridge facility on Earth, now transformed into a museum and research center. Humanity's last gift wasn't just protection against the harvesters, it was the key to our next evolution. The beginning of something entirely new. The gathered representatives could feel the truth of it. The quantum network hummed with potential, with possibilities that grew stronger every day. Species that had fought for centuries now shared thoughts, dreams, and purpose. Children born into this new reality would know a galaxy without the barriers that had limited their parents. This is humanity's legacy, Nixus declared. Not conquest, not control, but connection. They saw the threat coming and spent centuries preparing not to fight it, but to transcend it. They trusted us with power that could have been used to dominate, believing we would choose a better path. First speaker Thexus rose, their crystalline form catching the light. And what do you propose, lead archaeologist Brightscale? How do we govern a galaxy where every being is connected? Nixus's scales shifted to a color of absolute certainty. We don't govern it, we grow with it. The network itself shows us the way. No hierarchies, no dominant species, no controlled information. We learn together, we solve problems together, we face threats together. Humanity showed us that true strength lies not in isolation, but in connection. The chamber fell silent as her words resonated through both air and consciousness. Then, slowly, agreement began to build. Not through debate or voting, but through the shared understanding that the network made possible. The human colonies are offering to share their knowledge, Terran announced. 3 centuries of independent development, different approaches to science and culture. And through the network, we can understand it all, integrate it with our own discoveries. Professor Lana's markings pulsed with excitement. The possibilities for advancement are beyond calculation. Combined knowledge, shared experiences, multiple approaches to the same problems. We're entering a new age of discovery. And when the harvesters come, Security Chief Ralix added, they'll face something unprecedented. A galaxy that thinks, feels, and acts as one when needed, while preserving the diversity that makes each species unique. Nixus looked out over the assembled representatives, feeling their minds touch hers through the network. She remembered Amanda Nash's final smile, her trust in a future she wouldn't live to see. Humanity had given everything to create this moment, this possibility of transformation. The choice is made, she announced. The revolution is already complete. We can either embrace this new reality or cling to old powers that no longer have meaning. Humanity trusted us to make the right choice. Now we must prove that trust was justified. The chamber erupted in a chorus of agreement, both voiced and felt. The old Galactic Council was ending, but something new was being born. Something that bridged the gaps between species, between thoughts, between ways of being. And somewhere in the quantum network that connected them all, Nixes felt an echo of Amanda Nash's consciousness. Not her full being, but a trace, a memory, a hope given form through the connection of minds. Humanity's messenger had completed her task. The galaxy was forever changed. The age of isolation was over. The age of connection had begun. And when the harvesters finally arrived, they would find not prey, but a galaxy united in ways they could never have imagined. Humanity's last gift had become everyone's new beginning.